Hi, welcome to our Garuda mat. Today we're starting with some breath work. For the breath work today, I'm going to be sat on a chair. So this is an option for you at home, or you can sit down on the floor on a bolster or a block as usual. So before we begin the breath work today, I'd like to just give you a little bit of imagery to think about as we're working through the exercises. So we're just going to think about the function of our breath and what happens as we take a breath in. Today, we're going to focus on the diaphragm, which is our main breathing muscle. And the diaphragm sits inside the rib cage, and it's like a dome-shaped muscle. Above the diaphragm is your lungs and your heart, and they connect to the top of the diaphragm, so they sit on the top. Underneath is your liver, your stomach, and your intestines, and they're all in your abdominal cavity. So you can imagine this kind of muscle, the sheet of muscle that's sitting in your rib cage. It attaches to the bottom of your rib cage, and it's like a dome shape. So when we breathe in and we want more air in our lungs, the diaphragm draws down. And as it draws down, that dome flattens. And that's when we then have more capacity in the chest cavity as the lungs expand. Once the lungs have expanded, our ribs are nice and wide. So that's our in-breath. And then as we release, as we let the breath out, our diaphragm domes and pushes up onto the lungs, and the heart goes up with it, and it pushes the air back out the body. So it's quite a simple process of the diaphragm lifting and lowering. How, when we're breathing, are we aware that this is actually happening in our body? So we will start to feel this happening when our lungs inflate and our diaphragm comes down. You should feel your rib cage expanding. It doesn't just expand to the front or the sides or the back, it expands around the whole circumference of your rib cage. So I would like you to just start this first exercise by just thinking about your diaphragm. So if you create a dome shape with your hands, and this is mirroring the movement of your diaphragm in your chest. So when we bring the breath in, the diaphragm comes down and it flattens. If you imagine my elbows at the outside and my lungs and feel the cavity in my chest, as my ribs expand. On the out breath, the ribs come in as my diaphragm lifts and pushes the air out. We breathe in, we breathe out. So that's your diaphragm and how it moves as we breathe in and out. Please do not worry if at this time you find that quite difficult, because a lot of us get into this pattern of breathing quite the opposite, or we're breathing really high up in our chest, which means we're not getting that lowering of the diaphragm and the full capacity of our lungs. So it's something that really comes with practice, and we're going to have that image in our next breath practice work. So if you find a place that you feel comfortable, remember the nice wide sit bones, thinking of your pelvis, and above your pelvis is your rib cage. And we know that the diaphragm is inside the rib cage. So one of the things I often see is we take the ribs forward, and then this compresses and restricts movement in the back of the rib cage. So we want to just make sure that the sternum is soft so that the ribs sit above the pelvis. The other thing we often see, which is where the ribs drop back and we're more in this posture, again, we're compressing through the front of the body and limiting the movement of the diaphragm. So we want to make sure, as best as is comfortable for you in your body, that your pelvis and your rib cage are aligned. Think of it like a tube. Yeah, you're creating this nice tube through the body. So then when we breathe in, the diaphragm can come down and the diaphragm can lift. So setting where you can feel where your diaphragm and your your rib cage and your pelvis are aligned. Then just relax your shoulders, and really importantly, just try and relax your jaw. Okay, just notice what you're doing with your teeth. Are your teeth gripping, or can the jaw be relaxed? And then if it helps to close your eyes, I want you to take in some deep breaths, whatever that means to you, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just visualizing the breath coming in, the lungs expanding, the diaphragm lowering. I really like to give a little bit of feedback. So the brain likes to, just to confirm and to build your awareness as you breathe in. Can you feel your ribs expanding into your hands? Breathing out and feel the ribs coming in. Again, we breathe in. Breathing out. Breathing in, diaphragm is lowering, ribs expanding. Breathing out. You can keep your hands there if you like, or just relax the arms down. Breathe in for 4. And hold. Breathe out for 4. And hold. Inhale, 4. Hold. Feel the volume in your chest, the expansion of your ribs. Exhale. And hold. Breathe in, shoulders and the jaw relaxed. Expand into your ribs. Let the lungs fill. Hold. Let the breath out. All the breath, feel the ribs come in, and just imagine that diaphragm really pushing the last bit of air out the lungs, out through the mouth. Breathe, hold. And then inhale. Hold. And exhale the breath. And hold. And inhale the breath. Ribs expanding, diaphragm is down, lungs are really full. Can you feel them anymore? And exhale. And hold. And then breathe your natural. So when we breathe and our diaphragm comes down, although we talk about breathing into the tummy, what we're actually doing is we're breathing into the lungs, and because the diaphragm comes down, it pushes down on our liver, on our stomach, on our intestines, and it increases the pressure in our abdominal cavity. And we need the abdominals to expand and the pelvic floor to lengthen. to accommodate that increased pressure. We'll talk about those muscles over the next few weeks, but today, just that diaphragm. And you can practice your breath daily. I would really recommend just 5 minutes, just allowing your body and your mind to get connected and feel the lifting and lower of the diaphragm. I hope that's useful.